Dr. Blue sat in their office, staring at the holographic display showing Tom's test results. 6 hours had passed since the human's arrival, and nothing made sense anymore. "Run the analysis again," they ordered the medical eye. "This is the 7th analysis, Doctor," the AI responded. "The results remain consistent. The human patient's cells are demonstrating unprecedented adaptive capabilities." Dr. Blue's 4 hands drummed nervously on their desk. Their medical training insisted this was impossible. Humans were supposed to be simple creatures with basic biological systems, yet here was evidence suggesting otherwise. The door chimed, and Nurse Green entered with a new batch of test results. "Doctor, the patient's fever has increased to 40 degrees Celsius. 40 degrees. Their proteins should be breaking down at that temperature." Dr. Blue stood up quickly. What primitive evolutionary mistake would allow a species to? They stopped mid-sentence as they saw the newest scan results. The strange patterns on Tom's skin had spread, but instead of showing tissue damage, they revealed something extraordinary. "His cells are adapting," Nurse Green said quietly. "They're creating new protein structures we've never seen before." Dr. Blue's professional pride wouldn't let them admit their amazement. "Clearly our equipment is malfunctioning. These humans probably contaminated it with their crude technology." They walked briskly toward Tom's room. "We'll treat this like any other fever. Start him on standard temperature regulation protocols." But when they entered Tom's room, they found him sitting up in bed, drinking water. Despite the impossibly high fever, he was conscious and alert. "Hey, Doc," Tom said, his voice stronger than before. "Any idea what's wrong with me yet?" Dr. Blue blinked all 4 eyes in sequence, trying to hide their confusion. "Your primitive immune system is obviously overreacting to something. Nothing our advanced medicine can't handle." Tom managed a weak laugh. "You know, Doc, you keep saying primitive like it's a bad thing. Sometimes the old ways work pretty well." Before Dr. Blue could respond, their medical scanner started beeping urgently. Tom's temperature had risen another degree, but instead of showing signs of organ failure, his body was transforming the heat into something else. "Impossible," Dr. Blue muttered, their scientific certainty crumbling. "This defies every medical principle we know." The medical bay's AI spoke up. "Doctor, I found something in the historical database. Similar cases were reported when humans first made contact with the Stellar Federation. All patients survived, despite showing symptoms that would be fatal to other species." Dr. Blue's professional pride battled with their scientific curiosity. They had spent decades treating patients from hundreds of species, always secure in their knowledge of biological superiority. But now, "Mr. Reed," they said slowly, "your body is doing something our medical science says should be impossible. Your cells are not just fighting the infection. They're evolving in real time to combat it." Tom nodded as if this wasn't surprising at all. "Yeah, we do that sometimes. My grandfather used to say humans are like weeds. The more you try to kill us, the stronger we get." Dr. Blue's silver skin flushed slightly purple with embarrassment as they remembered all their condescending remarks about human biology. They were about to respond when Medical Director Swift entered the room. "Dr. Blue," the director said gravely, "the Federation Medical Council is requesting an emergency meeting. It seems we have similar cases appearing at other stations, and—" They paused, looking uncomfortable. "All the affected humans are recovering in ways that contradict our understanding of biology." As Dr. Blue followed the director out, they glanced back at Tom, who gave them a small wave. For the first time, Dr. Blue wondered if perhaps they had been wrong about humans all along. Maybe there was something remarkable about their supposedly primitive biology, something that could revolutionize medical science across the galaxy. They just needed to swallow their pride long enough to learn from it. Dr. Blue stood at the viewing window of Port Alexandria Space Station's medical bay, their 4 eyes blinking in sequence as they watched the approaching transport ship. The doctor's silvery skin reflected the distant starlight, creating small patterns on the sterile white walls behind them. Another human patient, They muttered, their upper lip curling slightly. How primitive. The medical bay's AI chimed softly. Dr. Blue, the patient's records have arrived. Name: Tom Reed. Age: 34 Earth years. Symptoms include fever, unusual skin patterns, and… Yes, yes. Dr. Blue waved one of their four hands dismissively. Probably another case of their simple immune system overreacting. These humans, with their single heart and fragile calcium-based bones, it's a wonder they made it to space at all. The transport ship docked, and through the medical bay windows, Dr. Blue watched as their new patient was transferred aboard. The human male lay on the floating stretcher, his skin unusually pale except for strange, mottled patterns along his arms. Dr. Blue's assistant, Nurse Green, hurried to their side. Unlike Dr. Blue's silvery appearance, Nurse Green had a more greenish tint to their skin, typical of the younger generation of their species. Doctor, the initial scans are unusual, Nurse Green said, their voice uncertain. Unusual. These humans are walking medical disasters. Their bodies are filled with redundant organs. They lack proper exoskeletons, and their digestive system is horrifically inefficient. Dr. Blue walked over to the examination room, their footsteps making soft clicking sounds on the polished floor. The human, Tom Reed, was now lying on the examination table. His eyes were open, watching the medical staff with a mix of pain and curiosity. "Good morning, Mr. Reed," Dr. Blue said, trying to keep the condescension out of their voice. "I am Dr. Blue, Chief Medical Officer of Port Alexandria Station. I see you've managed to contract some sort of ailment." Tom attempted to smile, though it looked more like a grimace. "Just Tom, please. And yeah, it started 3 days ago. First the fever, then these marks." He lifted his arm slightly, showing the strange patterns. Dr. Blue ran their diagnostic scanner over Tom's body, all four eyes focused on the readings. Their confident expression faltered for a moment. "This can't be right," they muttered, running the scan again. "Your body temperature is far too high for a human, yet you're conscious and speaking. And these readings." They turned to Nurse Green. "Get me a full molecular scan." These humans and their primitive biology probably just confused the basic scanner. As Nurse Green prepared the advanced scanning equipment, Dr. Blue made notes in their medical log. Human patient displaying typically inefficient biological responses. Their single-pump circulatory system is clearly struggling to maintain homeostasis. Remarkable they haven't evolved past such basic systems yet. The molecular scanner hummed to life, its soft blue light passing over Tom's body. Dr. Blue watched the results appear on their holographic display, their professional demeanor cracking slightly as they saw the readings. "Impossible," they whispered. The numbers didn't make sense. According to the scan, Tom's cells were doing something that contradicted everything Dr. Blue had learned about biology in their 200 years of medical practice. "Doctor," Tom's voice was weak but steady, "is everything okay?" Dr. Blue quickly composed themselves. "Of course. Your primitive physiology is simply having one of its typical overreactions. We'll soon have you fixed up with proper medical care, not those crude treatments you're used to on Earth." But as they turned away from the patient, Dr. Blue's professional confidence wavered. They had never seen cellular activity like this before, not in any species across the known galaxy. The patterns were unlike anything in their extensive medical database. "Nurse Green," they said quietly, "run a full spectrum analysis on these readings, and contact the medical director. Tell them we might have something unusual." As Dr. Blue left the examination room, they couldn't help but glance back at their human patient. For the first time in their long medical career, they felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. The human's primitive biology was about to challenge everything they thought they knew about medical science. The emergency meeting of the Federation Medical Council stretched into its third hour. Dr. Blue stood before the holographic displays of 20 of the galaxy's most respected medical experts, all demanding explanations they couldn't provide. "So you're telling us," said Council Member Red, his hologram flickering with irritation, "that these humans are surviving conditions that would kill any reasonable species." "The evidence is clear," Dr. Blue replied, trying to keep their voice steady. "My patient's temperature has reached levels that should have caused complete organ failure. Instead, his body is adapting." Back in Tom's room, the monitors showed his temperature had reached 41 degrees Celsius. The strange patterns on his skin now covered most of his body, glowing faintly in the dim light of the medical bay. Nurse Green rushed into the meeting room. "Doctor, the patient's condition has changed." Dr. Blue quickly ended the transmission with the council and hurried to Tom's room. Medical Director Swift was already there, watching the monitors with intense concentration. Tom lay unconscious, his body emanating heat that they could feel from across the room. But instead of the expected tissue damage, his skin seemed to be changing. "Look at this," Director Swift pointed to a microscopic view of Tom's blood cells. "They're not just fighting the infection. They're creating completely new defensive structures. It's like watching evolution happen in real time." Dr. Blue's professional mask finally cracked. "In all my years of practice, I've never seen anything like this. How can a species we considered primitive have such advanced biological capabilities?" The medical eye chimed in. "Doctor, I've completed analysis of human medical history. You may want to see this." A holographic display appeared, showing countless cases of human survival against impossible odds. Humans recovering from temperatures that would cook other species. Humans surviving massive blood loss. Humans adapting to poisons and radiation. Their entire medical history is filled with cases like this. Dr. Blue whispered, "We've been so focused on their primitive features that we missed something extraordinary." Tom suddenly gasped and sat up, his eyes wide open. The monitors went crazy, showing readings that should have been impossible for any living being. "Water," he croaked, "really thirsty." Nurse Green quickly brought him water while Dr. Blue and Director Swift stared in amazement. The patterns on Tom's skin were starting to fade, and his temperature was dropping rapidly. "How do you feel?" Dr. Blue asked, running a scanner over him. "Like I ran a marathon in a sauna," Tom replied with a weak smile. "But better. Whatever was making me sick, I think my body figured out how to beat it." Director Swift shook their head in wonder. "Mr. Reed, your body didn't just beat it. It completely rewrote its own biological rules to create a defense against it. We've never seen anything like this." Dr. Blue's scanner showed something even more remarkable. "The new cellular structures your body created, they're not temporary. Your immune system has permanently adapted to prevent this infection from ever affecting you again." "Yeah, we do that," Tom said casually. "My mom always said what doesn't kill us makes us stronger." Guess she meant it literally. Dr. Blue looked at their patient with new eyes. Gone was the condescension, replaced by genuine curiosity and growing respect. They had been so wrong about human biology. "Director," they said quietly, "I believe we need to completely revise our understanding of biological advancement. These humans, their primitive biology, might be the most sophisticated adaptive system we've ever encountered." As if to emphasize the point, Tom's monitors showed his body temperature returning to normal, while his cellular structure displayed capabilities that would revolutionize their understanding of biology forever. The real question was, what other surprises did human biology have in store for them? Dr. Blue's laboratory had never been so crowded. Doctors and researchers from 3 different species huddled around displays showing Tom's medical data. The human sat on an examination table, now fully recovered, watching with amusement as the alien studied his primitive biology with growing excitement. "Watch this," Dr. Blue said, playing a time-lapse recording of Tom's cells adapting to the infection. "Notice how the cellular structure completely reorganizes itself. It's not just fighting the infection. It's evolving in real time to create better defenses." "But that's impossible," protested a purple-skinned researcher. "Evolution takes generations." "Not for humans, apparently," Director Swift replied, entering the lab. We found similar patterns in other human medical records. Their bodies don't just heal, they upgrade themselves. Tom raised his hand like a student in class. Sorry to interrupt, but this is kind of normal for us. We call it getting stronger after being sick. The room fell silent as all four-eyed faces turned to stare at him. Normal. Dr. Blue's voice cracked slightly. Mr. Reed, your body just performed cellular reconstruction that our most advanced medical technology can't replicate. How can that be normal? Tom shrugged. Well, Earth isn't exactly a friendly place. We've got all sorts of diseases, different climates, varying gravity in different regions. I guess we had to adapt or die. Dr. Blue turned to their research team. Bring up the Earth environmental data. A holographic display filled with images of Earth's various environments. Frozen poles, burning deserts, deep oceans, high mountains. The alien researchers watched in growing amazement. They live in all of these conditions. Someone gasped. Not just live, Dr. Blue said, their voice filled with newfound respect. They thrive. Their bodies adapt to each environment, becoming stronger with each challenge. They turned to Tom. Your primitive biology isn't primitive at all. It's incredibly sophisticated. The medical AI interrupted with new data. Doctor, analysis of human medical history reveals something remarkable. Humans have survived conditions that would be lethal to 99% of known species. Extreme radiation, severe physical trauma, exposure to vacuum, even some poisons. Tom nodded. Yeah, my grandfather survived being struck by lightning. Twice. We're pretty hard to kill. Dr. Blue's research team frantically took notes as the AI continued displaying cases of extraordinary human survival. Each example seemed more impossible than the last. Director, Dr. Blue said, their silver skin practically glowing with excitement. I believe we've discovered something revolutionary. Human biology isn't just adaptable, it's actively seeking out ways to improve itself. Every challenge they survive makes them stronger. Like a biological upgrade system, Director Swift mused. But how did they develop such capabilities? Tom cleared his throat. Have you seen our planet's history? We evolved alongside predators that could easily kill us. We survived ice ages, floods, volcanic eruptions. Earth tried to kill us countless times, but we just kept getting better at surviving. Dr. Blue's four eyes widened with sudden understanding. Your inefficient single heart. It's incredibly robust and can adapt to different demands. Your fragile bones. They're constantly rebuilding themselves stronger. Even your simple immune system is more advanced than our most sophisticated medical treatments. The laboratory burst into excited discussion as researchers began planning new studies. But Dr. Blue noticed something else in the data, something that made their hearts race with possibilities. Director, they said quietly, if we can understand how human biology achieves these adaptations, we might be able to revolutionize medical treatment across the galaxy. Their primitive systems might hold the key to solving problems we've struggled with for centuries. Tom grinned. Does this mean you'll stop calling us primitive? Dr. Blue's silver skin flushed slightly purple with embarrassment. Mr. Reed, I believe we owe your species an apology. You're not primitive at all. You're evolutionary masterpieces. We just didn't know enough to recognize it. The main conference hall of Port Alexandria Space Station had never been so packed. Hundreds of medical researchers from across the galaxy had gathered to hear Dr. Blue's presentation on human biology. The silver-skinned doctor stood at the podium, facing their peers with new confidence. Fellow researchers, they began. Everything we thought we knew about biological advancement was wrong. The holographic display behind them showed Tom's medical scans, along with data from 50 other human cases that had been discovered since their initial findings. We assumed that advanced biology meant perfectly engineered systems, each organ optimized for a single purpose. Dr. Blue continued. But humans showed us something different. Biological systems that adapt, improve, and evolve in real time. In the front row, Tom sat next to Director Swift, trying not to smile too much as the alien doctors stared at his medical scans in amazement. "Look at this footage," Dr. Blue said, playing a recording of human cells responding to extreme conditions. When exposed to radiation, their cells don't just die or mutate randomly. They actively develop new protection mechanisms. When faced with extreme temperatures, their bodies don't just endure, they adapt to function better in those conditions. A green-skinned doctor from the outer colony stood up. "But their systems are so basic. They have no backup organs, no auxiliary breathing apparatus, no secondary circulation." "Ah." Dr. Blue held up one of their 4 hands. "That's where we were wrong. They don't need backup systems because their primary systems are incredibly adaptable. Watch this." The display showed a human heart adjusting its beating patterns under different conditions, slow and steady during rest, powerful and fast during exercise, and incredibly resilient under stress. Their single heart isn't a limitation, it's an advantage. It can adapt to any situation. Their lungs don't just process oxygen, they can gradually adjust to different atmospheric conditions. Even their digestive system, which we thought was inefficient, can learn to process nearly any organic matter as food. The audience murmured with growing excitement as Dr. Blue shared more examples. Humans surviving in space with minimal protection. Humans recovering from injuries that would kill most species. Humans adapting to poisons and developing immunity. Tom raised his hand during the question session. "Doc, you might want to tell them about my grandmother. She's 95 and still goes swimming every morning." Dr. Blue's eyes lit up. "Yes, human longevity is another fascinating aspect. They don't just survive, they can remain active and adapt to new challenges well into their later years." A senior medical researcher stood up, their scales shimmering with agitation. "This goes against everything we've believed about biological evolution. Are you suggesting we've been moving in the wrong direction with our medical advances?" "Not wrong," Dr. Blue replied diplomatically, "but perhaps too focused on perfecting specific functions instead of developing adaptability. Human biology shows us that true advancement isn't about being perfect. It's about being able to improve and adapt to any challenge." Director Swift stepped forward. "The Federation Medical Council has already approved a new research initiative. We're calling it the Human Adaptation Study. Dr. Blue will lead a team to understand how we can apply these principles to help other species." The conference hall erupted in excited discussion. Researchers who had once dismissed human biology as primitive were now eagerly reviewing the data, seeing countless possibilities for medical breakthroughs. Tom watched it all with quiet amusement. "You know," he said to Dr. Blue after the presentation, "back on Earth, we have a saying, 'What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.' Guess we meant it literally." Dr. Blue's silver skin rippled with what humans would recognize as a smile. "Mr. Reed, your species has taught us a valuable lesson. True strength isn't about being perfect. It's about being able to adapt and improve. And in that regard, humans might be the most advanced species we've ever encountered." The medical community would never look at human biology the same way again. 3 months after the groundbreaking conference, Port Alexandria Space Station's medical bay looked very different. One entire section had been converted into the new Human Adaptation Research Center, where Dr. Blue and their team worked to unlock the secrets of human biology. Today, they were attempting something never tried before. "Are you sure about this?" Tom asked, watching as Dr. Blue prepared a medical chamber. Inside, a young alien child lay unconscious, suffering from a previously incurable genetic condition. "Your cells showed us the way," Dr. Blue replied, their silver skin glowing with excitement. "We've modified our treatment using principles from human biology. Instead of trying to fix the problem directly, we're going to help her body learn to fix itself." Director Swift monitored the readings as the treatment began. The chamber hummed softly as it introduced the modified human-inspired therapy into the child's system. "Look at this," Nurse Green pointed to the display. "Her cells are responding just like we hoped. They're learning to adapt, just like human cells do." Dr. Blue watched the monitors intently. For years, they had tried to treat such genetic conditions by directly modifying the affected genes. But studying human biology had taught them a different approach, teaching the body to heal itself. "It's working," Tom said, his eyes wide as he watched the child's vital signs improve. "Her body is actually learning to fix the genetic problem on its own." The medical AI confirmed the observations. Patient's cellular structure is showing adaptive responses similar to human healing patterns. Genetic repair mechanisms are activating. Condition is improving at 200% faster than traditional treatments. Dr. Blue's research team broke into excited chatter. This was their third successful treatment using human-inspired medical techniques, but by far the most significant. "The implications are enormous," Director Swift said, reviewing the data. "If we can teach other species' bodies to adapt like humans do, we could revolutionize treatment for thousands of conditions." In another part of the lab, researchers studied recordings of human wound healing. The way human tissue could rebuild itself, growing stronger at the injury site, had already led to improvements in surgical techniques across 5 different species. "You know what's funny?" Tom said, watching the team's work. "All those things you thought were primitive about us, our aggressive immune system, our rapid cell division, our ability to regrow tissue, they're exactly what's helping you make these breakthroughs." Dr. Blue nodded, their 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "We were so focused on creating perfect, specialized biological systems that we forgot the value of adaptability. Your species taught us that the best design isn't the most complex. It's the one that can learn and improve." The young patient in the chamber began to stir, her vital signs now stable and improving. Her parents, waiting anxiously outside, burst into tears of joy when Dr. Blue gave them the news. The treatment was successful, Dr. Blue told them. "And thanks to what we learned from human biology, her body will now be able to prevent this condition from recurring. She'll be stronger than before." Later that day, Dr. Blue updated their research log. Human biological principles have now been successfully adapted to treat 15 previously incurable conditions. Their primitive systems continue to demonstrate sophistication we never imagined possible. Every day, we discover new applications for their adaptive capabilities. Tom read the log over their shoulder and grinned. "Not bad for a species that you thought was barely advanced enough for space travel, huh?" Dr. Blue's skin flushed purple with embarrassment, but they smiled back. "Mr. Reed, your species has done more than prove us wrong. You've shown us an entirely new way of thinking about biological advancement. Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most obvious ones." As they watched more patients arrive for human-inspired treatments, Dr. Blue couldn't help but wonder, what other medical miracles would they discover by studying the remarkable adaptability of human biology? 1 year after Tom Reed first arrived at Port Alexandria Space Station, the medical bay was hosting a very different kind of ceremony. The Federation Medical Council had gathered for the opening of the first Galactic Center for Human Biological Studies, and Dr. Blue was about to give the most important speech of their career. The silver-skinned doctor stood at the podium, looking out at an audience that included representatives from over 50 alien species. In the front row sat Tom, now working as a permanent consultant for the research team. "A year ago," Dr. Blue began, "I made the worst mistake a scientist can make. I let prejudice blind me to discovery. I looked at human biology and saw something primitive. Instead, I should have asked, how has this species survived everything their harsh world threw at them?" The holographic displays showed a series of images: human cells adapting to radiation, bones healing stronger than before, immune systems learning from every challenge. "In the past year, we've developed over 200 new treatments based on human biological principles. Conditions we thought incurable are now being successfully treated, and we've only scratched the surface of what we can learn." Director Swift stepped forward with a data tablet. The results speak for themselves. Patient recovery rates have improved by 300%. Treatment success rates have doubled. And most importantly, We're seeing patients develop the same kind of adaptive resilience that humans naturally possess. Tom stood up to share his perspective. When I first came here sick, Dr. Blue thought I was a primitive patient with an overactive immune system. Now I help teach alien doctors how human bodies adapt and grow stronger. Funny how things work out, isn't it? The audience laughed. Even Dr. Blue's silver skin flushed slightly purple with amusement. But the most remarkable discovery wasn't about human biology, Dr. Blue continued. It was about how we approach medical science. We thought advancement meant making things more complex, more specialized. Humans showed us that true advancement is about adaptability, about getting stronger from every challenge. The medical AI displayed statistics from the past year. Thousands of successful treatments, hundreds of new medical techniques, and dozens of breakthrough discoveries. Each one traced back to understanding how human biology adapted and improved. Today, we're not just opening a research center, Dr. Blue announced. We're starting a new chapter in medical science. Every species has something to teach us, but humans have shown us that what we once saw as primitive might actually be profound. After the ceremony, Dr. Blue found Tom looking out the same viewing window where they had first waited for his arrival a year ago. "Quite a change from when you first got here," Tom said with a smile. "Indeed," Dr. Blue agreed. "Though I still find it remarkable how your species turns nearly every challenge into an advantage. Just last week, we discovered human bones become stronger in lower gravity instead of weaker. It's as if your bodies see every problem as an opportunity to improve." "That's just how we're built," Tom shrugged. "Life throws something at us. We adapt and get stronger. Simple as that." "Simple," Dr. Blue chuckled, all four eyes twinkling. "That word doesn't mean what I thought it did anymore. Your simple biology is teaching us more than centuries of advanced medical research." The viewing window showed Earth in the distance, a blue marble floating in space. Dr. Blue looked at it with new appreciation, understanding now that this challenging world had forged one of the most remarkable species in the galaxy. "You know what the best part is?" Tom said, watching ships come and go from the station. "Every time you learn something new about human biology, you find a way to help other species with it. We're not just surviving anymore. We're helping everyone else survive better too." Dr. Blue nodded, their silver skin glowing with pride and excitement for the future. "And that, Mr. Reed, might be the most advanced thing about humans of all." The end.